Hey everybody, and welcome to Malt Muser Whiskey Reviews and special Malt Muser Whiskey interview. I'm joined today by the brand manager from Glen Scotia, Gary Mills, and Iain McAlister, the Master Distiller of Glen Scotia. Welcome you all. Thanks for hopping on and joining me for this interview.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So just to start things off, it'd be interesting to know how long you all have been in the industry, respectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been at Glen Scotia coming on for 13 years, Eric. So it was my first taste of the industry. So before that, I was more engineering background in Campbelltown. I was born in Campbelltown, bred in Campbelltown. So I've never went too far. And it's all been Glen Scotia the last few years. So it's been, absolutely really interesting.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so for me, I've only been in the whiskey industry for about 5 years now, just over 5 years. I joined the Loch Lomond Group just after the takeover, and from my first week and a bit of the company, I spent down in Campbelltown with Iain and the team, and I've been bitten by the Campbelltown and the Glen Scotia bug ever since. And I wasn't really into whiskey before then, so Glen Scotia is what. Like I said, it was the bug that got me, and I've not been able to let go since.
Very cool, very cool. And Iain, maybe this is a good question for you. Would you be willing to share kind of a brief history of Glen Scotia Distillery and just kind of the Campbelltown region of single malt whiskies in general?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously Campbelltown's a dedicated region in its own right. It's always had a huge influence in the Scottish whisky industry as a rule, from the very early beginnings, 1817, right up until really the 1930s, 1931. There was up to 30 plus distilleries that came and went in Campbelltown. So it's for a small town in the west coast of Scotland, it's unique. There's nowhere quite like it. It's been called different names: the Victorian whisky capital of the world, Whiskyopolis, Whisky City, and I think that's still shines through to the present day. When obviously we've got 3 distilleries in Campbelltown. Glen Scotia is the true survivor out of them all. It's had different owners. It's been loved. It's been unloved. Even when I started, it wasn't the same place it is today. Obviously, when the Loch Lomond Group took over, and Gary started, of course, that's been one of the main turning points. So it's really what we see today is really something special, something unique. As I say, you've got that heritage.
What was the volume when you started, Iain? What were we producing when you started?
Yeah, when I started, there was 3 of us there. We're producing 80,000 litres a year, and it was really small scale. There was no emphasis, on the brand and the no emphasis on the whiskey. To be fair, it was we were running, but there was no direction. There wasn't really much else happening, which was, even in that period, it wasn't that long ago. We weren't alone in that aspect. When you fast forward to the present day, there's a lot more emphasis, obviously, in everything about the distillery. Nowadays, there's 9 of us there, and we're producing over 500,000 litres. So it's been fantastic, and obviously, I work quite closely with Gary. And it's every year it goes on. We see the distillery growing to reaching new heights, and it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful to see how it's developed and how it's really came of age. So yeah, fantastic place.
You recently did a rebrand or kind of a repackaging of your whiskeys. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I suppose part of that came as part of the kind of takeover. Eric, like Iain said, there wasn't masses of focus on the bottled product before. And I think a lot of the times, but the bottled what there was, and there's quite I don't think I'm speaking out of turn in saying there was probably some inconsistencies across the range.
Yep.
And the clear focus as part of the rebrand and the refresh was to give us a very consistent range that can be available all year round and really reflect the true style of Campbelltown whiskies. That's always been at the absolute core of what we do, is to try and really reflect that Campbelltown style and stay true to that, and really kind of bring that history to life through the whiskey.
Yeah. So that brings up an interesting question. How, if you were to define the Campbelltown style to somebody who is just getting into single malt Scotch whiskey and exploring the different regions, like in what way would you describe its kind of signature flavor profile or anything?
Well, I mean, obviously Campbelltown's, as I say, as its own region, so it's obviously going to have certain uniqueness there, certain descriptors that obviously, give it that Campbelltown style. It's not an ale, it's not a Speyside, it's a Campbelltown. That's what it's at. It's going to be coastal. It's going to have marine aspects. There's going to be a bit of salinity in there. There's going to be oils, important, these oils. And what's really important with Glen Scotia also is that flavour profile. So you're going to have a fantastic flavour profile. Potentially it could be tropical fruits. So there's all these different components. Potentially a little bit of peat in there too. If you're doing a peated run at Glen Scotia. So there's a whole raft of different aspects there, but it gives it that uniqueness, and all these different components will come together and give you that unique Glen Scotia Campbelltown flavour profile, which is, as I say, wonderful. Really, yourself, obviously you spoke about the 15-year-old there, that's as part of the core range. That's really, there you go. That's the bottle. That's obviously really close to that distillery profile, in the core range. So again, everything's there, the oiliness, that's subtle salinity, but there's a fantastic flavour profile going on there. And obviously the casks, what casks you've been using, whether it's a bourbon, whether it's maybe finished in a little bit of sherry, but predominantly that bourbon aspect will come through there. So yeah, it really, as whiskies go, and again, I guess I'm biased, but Glen Scotia is a fantastic whiskey. Obviously, it's really accessible. It's really easy to, to approach, and potentially for someone who's not au fait with whiskies in general, yeah, it's a fantastic. As the flavour profile itself is really accessible.
Yeah,
I think it's. I think two things I would say. It's very telling that the kind of big success for kind of Campbelltown. I mean, it was basically the whiskey for about close to 100 years. In Scotland and a kind of the wider beyond from there, and a lot of that at the time was going to blending, and I think that speaks, like Iain says, to that flavour profile and that lovely smooth approachability of it. But yeah, I would probably echo what Iain said. I think the 15-year-old for me, I'll often just describe that as Campbelltown in a glass for me. It's got that wee bit of spice, bit of smoke kind of at the back of the palate, but you've also got that wonderful kind of ginger, bit of orange peel kind of coming through as well, and just those lovely oils and the maritime sea spray as well. Very
cool. So Iain, I'd be curious, what is a day in the life at work for a master distiller at Glen Scotia? What does a normal day look like?
No, is it pre-lockdown or post-lockdown?
Yeah, no.
We'll say pre-lockdown, assuming that at some point we will have a post-lockdown world.
Well, that's it. I mean, I know. It's quite. Everything's all over the place. I think my job really, and I guess that's why life took me to where I am. I think it suits my personality because there's no 2 days the same. You don't know what you're going to be doing that day, and it's a wide range of skills. It could be human resources, it could be engineering, it could be, as I say, working with Gary. Obviously, with the not that I'm a marketing expert by any means, but working in cooperation with Gary. It could be the sales side. It could be whiskey, you know, dealing with whiskey samples. It could be looking at wood. It's wide, you know, a wide remit of skills. And what I tend to find now I've got an assistant manager, the more and more as I go on, because obviously it was just me and I, like, obviously when I was first took over at Glen Scotia, the whole emphasis of running the distillery was just on my shoulders, you know, so I always found it quite hard to, I guess, let go. But now I've got an assistant manager, more of the day-to-day running of the distillery, the essential paperwork and such like will pass to the assistant manager. And it's allowing me, as we go on, more time to obviously do the bit I guess I really enjoy, you know, working with the whiskey, working with the casks and potentially, you know, seeing what we've got at the distillery and seeing, you know, what we potentially could do, you know, working in cooperation with Gary and Michael, you know, the master blender. So yeah, it's a fantastic job, fantastic opportunity, and it's, as I say, it's unique. You know, it really is unique positions. So never a dull moment.
Well, that's great. You know you're in the right place if you're constantly having something new to do all the time.
Absolutely.
I'd be curious for you, Gary. You know, we were just talking about kind of the impact that the coronavirus pandemic has had. I imagine as a brand manager, you probably did quite a bit of travel. And then what is your job looking like today, for a brand manager?
Yeah, so I always try and be. So I live in Glasgow, so still on the west coast of Scotland, but as the crow flies, 20 minutes from Campbelltown, but it's a 3.5 hour drive, probably door to door. But I'll always try, like out with these unusual circumstances, I'll always try and get down to Campbelltown at least once a fortnight. Certainly an absolute minimum once a month to get some face-to-face time with the guys. But also kind of get in and around Campbelltown. It's a wee town, it's a wee community, and we all kind of chip in and try and do everything and make sure everybody's all right. So it's whether it's the Ardshiel Whisky Bar or down at the Royal Hotel and just checking out what's going on with those guys. But yeah, since lockdown, I've been working from home. This must be week 14, 15 for me working from home. Brings lots of challenges. 3 co-workers under the age of 10 now sharing an office with me brings its own challenges. But from a work point of view, I would probably actually say things are busier than they were before. There's now certainly a much bigger focus on digital, with nobody but been allowed to come to see us at the distillery. That focus is how we can take that Campbelltown and Glen Scotia message to everyone in their own homes. And the biggest bit of that was like the Campbelltown Malts Festival. So obviously, unfortunately, that had to be cancelled due to COVID, and rightly so. It was the right thing to do, and a call that we tried to make in conjunction with the other distilleries as early as we could, because we knew there were people coming from as far afield as the States and beyond. So then the big challenge for me then and for Iain as well was to how we could try and come together and bring as much of that festival programme that we had planned to people in a digital way. And we're very lucky to had recently done some filming at the distillery. But then on the back, as well as that, Iain managed to get some filming done with a local photographer using our social distancing rules and things, and get some tastings done in the dunnage and in the shop. And I think we pulled together, I would say probably about 70 to 80% of the original programme, including walking tour of Campbelltown, distillery tour, 2 or 3 different tastings, including our kind of world famous dunnage tasting. So we managed to actually get casks from the dunnage warehouse shipped out, decanted into bottles, kind of 25ml bottles, and shipped out from there. Unfortunately, because it's 25ml, it meant we couldn't get any out into the States. But there's always next year, and I think that's the big thing. It's what we found was that the week of the festival, where we would ordinarily have maybe 1,000 to 1,500 people through the distillery, we had over 8,000 people visit the website, and from everywhere in the world, New Zealand, Australia, China, Japan, Argentina, Brazil. It was crazy, but great to see. And it's great to see that we're getting that reach, and the feedback has been fantastic. So it's, I mean, life carries on. We're still developing the new products. We're still trying to keep everybody abreast of what's going on with Glen Scotia and the distillery.
Wow, that's good to hear.
It's been great fun.
You all have been able to innovate in this really unprecedented time, and that the engines are still humming, and a lot of folks see the uncertainty out there around, even in their own lives, let alone in the whiskey industry, and knowing that that you all have been on top of this and are working hard to keep things going is very cool.
I think what Gary never mentioned was he did that good a job of it this year that we've got to do it all again next year.
Over and above the actual physical festival, we now essentially need to do 2 festivals next year, so that'll be interesting, and it'll be good fun. But again, that's the challenges, and it presents challenges and opportunities for us. I think we were in a slightly fortunate position in that we had already kind of planned to shut down at the distillery itself, because we were changing over the spirit still, wasn't it, Ian?
Yeah, that's right.
So that means we're kind of that then was allowed to then take place during the lockdown, and that's kind of continues to be ongoing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So shifting gears just a little bit, over the past couple of weeks on my channel, some of my subscribers and I have been talking about this bottle that I picked up from a merchant, so not from Glen Scotia directly, but from a merchant, and it's a single cask hand-filled shop bottling.
Yes.
And what the questions have been really that have come in is really just how cloudy this whiskey was. Now, we know it's non-chill filtered because it says so here on the label, which kudos to y'all for putting that right on the label, but it was just how cloudy it was, and also this very distinct note that we were getting off the nose. And so I've been talking about this back and forth, trying it each week and sharing my thoughts with folks. And so the idea came up to talk to you all directly about it. And so we really just wanted to ask if this is actually just the style of a distillery bottling, or if perhaps there's some other reason that this bottle could look like this. And just for everybody watching, this is what the level of cloudiness is of the bottle. And it's been open for about 5 weeks or so.
Well, obviously the flavour profile, there seems something quite not right with that, the flavour profile, but, and it's something that's obviously quite hard, for me to assess when I can't physically taste it, but the cloudiness, absolutely, by its nature, it's a single cask shop bottling, and what happens with that is it's bottled, it's pretty much bottled in the shop. So obviously the filtration levels, there is a certain amount of filtration in that, but it's very, very low. So pretty much you're getting that authentic, there's very little tampering with it. There's very little filtration, as I mentioned there, with that whiskey. So obviously everything in that bottle is pretty much out of the cask. So there's a certain amount of, for the want of a better word, there's a certain amount of roughness with it, so you're getting authenticity, with the whiskey. And that's what we tend to find when we sell them is that's really, really well received, because obviously you're getting something, potentially it's only a couple of hundred bottles, it's when it's gone, it's gone. It could be unique, obviously the cask it's came from, or the finishing cask, etc. That again is something that you're not likely to get again. And as I say, it's bottled, it's labelled, everything about it is in that shop, so you can potentially bottle it yourself. And that's why you're getting that cloudiness. Obviously, as I say, we're stripping nothing out of that. You're getting the full repertoire of fatty acids, proteins, esters, everything's in there. The whole flavour profile should be its optimum. Potentially, you'll actually get there's obviously the cloudiness there, but potentially you get small bits of charcoal too. So it's really, as I say, it is to the opposite end of the spectrum, if you like. It is something that is it's got that real Campbelltown. It's not tampered with in any way, as I say, and that's what you see is what you get. But it's regarding the taste, you know, obviously the flavour profile. Again, as I say, it's hard for me to assess that without actually physically tasting the whiskey. But there seems something not quite right with that, because what we found in the shop is that particular bottle, as soon as you taste it, you normally bought it. You know, there was no second choice for that. It would go quick, and obviously it was a finish. It was finishing Oloroso sherry, so it was again, you know, it was something special there. So it was unique. So
I think one of the things we should probably say, Eric, is that it's historically with the shop bottlings, it is normally only available directly from us if you come to the shop. And that's probably reflected in the fact that it is just a paper seal over the top. It's not something that we would ship out. There are times when we will ship products from the shop to people, but not with that product, and specifically for that reason. And I certainly can understand you. I think
that's a good thing to know.
And party site.
Yeah, that's a good thing to know, and something for folks to keep in mind when, you know, they're shopping third-party sites, that maybe if you see things that are, you know, supposedly just distillery-only bottlings, to keep that into consideration. So it's interesting, and thanks for kind of the additional clarification. I think what was most striking to us was, you know, folks who've had non-chill filtered whiskeys before know about, you know, the quote-unquote Scotch mist you get, you know, with a little bit of water. It's a little bit of haziness that just exists naturally in the bottle because it's non-chill filtered. It was just, I think, mostly with this was the surprising level of how cloudy it was. And a lot of folks were taken like by surprise at that. And so it's cool to kind of hear that this is actually mostly because of just the process of doing the hand fillings directly from the cask at the distillery.
Yeah. No tampering at all, as I say. You know, what you see is what you get with that. You know, it's pretty much like getting into a warehouse in Glen Scotia, filling a bottle of whiskey. You know, that's how rustic, if you like, it is. You know, that's what you're looking at here. You know, it's so you're taking your empty bottle, you're valenching it into a bottle, if you like. You know, so that's really obviously a small amount of filtration, but that's pretty much what you're looking at. And probably going forward, you know, the paper seal, you know, I think we'll need to really look at sealing these bottles as they leave the distillery now, just in case there's any.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, things like that go a long way to ensuring confidence in folks and things like that. And, you know, that may contribute, like, as I mentioned to you just before we got on, the note that I get off of it is something that, like, I've never picked up on a whiskey before. I've not had 1,000 whiskeys in my life, but I've had enough that it was like, I was surprised by it. And as you mentioned that, you know, there's potentially something a little bit off with it. Like I've described it as kind of like a sharp, I don't even know what words I want to use, charcoal, kind of chewed vitamin, kind of shoe varnish note. And I think kind of what I'm hearing from you is that, you know, that might be something that has to do with the third-party folks and how they took care of it necessarily, or something like that. So
there definitely seems something not quite right there. As I say, it's hard for me to, you know, to say for sure, you know, what's going on with the flavour there. But yeah, you know, you will get a certain amount of cloudiness for sure. But it just seems something not quite right there, right enough for the whole, you know, the whole bottle there, and it's kind of hard for me to put my finger on.
Totally. I appreciate your thoughts and feedback on it, and a lot of the folks who I've been chatting with over the past few weeks will be welcome to kind of hear this directly from y'all. So I appreciate that. I do have a couple more questions that have come in from some of my subscribers, and so I thought I would ask these for you. So one of my subscribers, Mathis, asked, "Do you use peat at all in any of your whiskeys, or do you use peated barley?"
Yeah, we do. Normally, what I'll do during the production regime is 1 month out of, you know, the 12-month calendar year, I'll do 2 different peated variants. So there'll be 2 weeks of, say, a lightly, medium or heavily peated, and the same for the following 2 weeks. So out of these 3 different variants, I'll pick 2 of those. got to remember where we are now, what month we're on. But basically, December last year, there was it was a lightly and a medium peated. So, and as I say, this year will probably more emphasis on the heavily peated. So, and obviously, there's a certain amount of peating levels through the, obviously the whiskies we produce, and obviously the one you talked about, is the same, so everything in balance. What we mentioned about the flavour profile, the Glen Scotia, any peated whiskies that we produce are normally got a fantastic balance there, with the flavour profile.
Yeah, have you? There's one that I know we've got in the US that you guys got that we don't have in the UK. This is a 10-year-old peated.
Oh no!
Which is pretty much only available, I think, in the US and Germany.
Yeah.
Which is it's a cracking wee drum. That's got a lovely wee bit of kind of
Very
cool.
So one of my other subscribers, Daniel, asked, "What got you into whiskey, and what do you love most about what you do?"
For me, it was really the history of Campbelltown. The what I seen at Glen Scotia, obviously what I knew about Campbelltown, and the distillery itself, what it was like when I first went to Glen Scotia. So it was a combination of a lot of different factors, and it's, once you obviously get bitten by the bug, then that's you. You're obviously hooked, and whiskey becomes your life, I'm afraid. So.
Yeah, no, definitely, and it's probably that man there has got a lot to answer for my whiskey habits. Like I said, when I joined the company, I was my first week or so down in Campbelltown, following that man about, seeing everything he does, see what everything Glen Scotia was about, and then that was in the April, and then it was full speed ahead for planning the first Glen Scotia Whiskey Festival, and it was that just had me from there. It was double cask was my first whiskey that I tried and was blown away by, and then it was just the progression through from there, and obviously been part of the Loch Lomond group. I spent a lot of my time at the Loch Lomond Distillery as well, and again that's the selection of spirits that came out of there just takes you off in so many different directions, and yeah, I mean, I'm still 5 years in, and I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface.
I know. That's the way I feel too, Gary.
but I think that's genuinely the thing with whiskey. Like, you could be. I mean, Charlie McLean himself says he's been doing whiskey for God knows how many years, and he still learns something all the time.
Yeah.
And I love that about it.
Right. Every day's a school day. That's for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and then same thing when you're just somebody going on your own whiskey journey. It's like every time you get something new, you're picking up a new flavor, you're expanding your palate, you're learning how to taste new things, you're trying stuff for the first time. It's always a lot of fun, and I think it's what keeps folks, continuing to engage in purchasing stuff. And so,
what were you, Eric? What got you into whiskey?
Well, that's a good question. It was bourbon for the most part. I kind of started off as a tequila drinker, and I picked up a tequila that was aged in bourbon cask. And then, obviously living in the United States, bourbon is something that you run into whether you like it or not in your life. But then really just started, again, trying new things, and I took a liking to kind of the sweet corn nature of it, and started picking up different bottles of bourbon, tasting them, learning how to taste whiskey. And then discovered single malt Scotch, which has been much more my favorite since then. Although I still do like some bourbon here and there, but I've really was taken by the kind of dynamism of Scotch and how it just has such unique profiles and different flavors that you pick up that I just don't think you necessarily get on heavily corn whiskeys because they're so sweet, and so. It's been a lot of fun, and again, it's just the whole journey, like you're talking about. You kind of learn something new every time you sip something, so it's been a lot of fun.
Fantastic. That's
and I think the other thing I love about whiskey is the kind of the global whiskey rather than just kind of Scottish. It's genuinely the community.
Yeah.
I think you get so much from so many people, even within the industry. People out think that. Yeah, because there are so many, even specifically in Scotland, the concentration is there, and people think, there must be everybody must be each other's throat and the competition must be huge, but it's not. Like even within, I mean, you could be next door to in Campbelltown, do you know what I mean? You could be literally a stone's throw from another distillery, but what you produce is so different. And you're not gonna take away, like somebody's not gonna say, oh, I'm not buying your whiskey because I've already got another whiskey. Like you'll know, like it's the ever expanding shelves and the collections that keep on going.
Yeah, and that leads really into the last question from one of my subscribers, Andrew, who just kind of asked, like, what is your relationship with the other distilleries in Campbelltown, particularly Springbank, who's, you know, a really well-known distillery as well? Like, do you look to kind of stay within the Campbelltown style, or, you know, do you find any challenges trying to differentiate yourselves? Do you guys have like a positive relationship in general with the other distilleries?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, obviously we've got a good relationship with Springbank. You know, I know quite a lot of the guys over there. So yeah, absolutely. You know, it's in everyone's interest that we have got that relationship, but there always has been. Obviously in the early days, you know, Springbank was and it still is. You know, that was obviously the dominant force in Campbelltown. It was the flag bearer, and it kept Campbelltown alive. And as I say, it wasn't that long ago when Glen Scotia was obviously a relatively unknown distillery in certain respects. So it's fantastic to see Glen Scotia up there now, you know, and we're rubbing shoulders with obviously Springbank. So yeah, it's good for everyone. Springbank, fantastic distillery, and it's, you know, as I say, it's super for us, you know, that we've obviously we've came of age and we've reached that place where we need to be. So and yeah, the flavour profile, we've obviously, you know, how we go about producing Glen Scotia New Make Spirit is you know, is obviously got that DNA. So we're obviously withholding that true Campbelltown elements in there, and it's something in the early days I spent quite a while working with my then boss at the time. You know, and we obviously tried to keep it as you know, as close to that identity as we could. So, and as I say, that there's always going to be subtle differences in different distilleries for sure. But I think, you know, if you've got the main characteristics and descriptors and DNA in there, then, you know, that'll
definitely a common thread between the two, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And that's important. You know, it really is. It's a small town, Eric. As I say, you know, for everyone that doesn't know, Campbelltown's obviously only a population of 5,000 people on the west coast of Scotland. In the very peak, you know, when there was...
And only at its peak with 30 distilleries, it still only had 9,000, so...
Yep.
If you didn't work in the distillery, you worked in something to do with the distillery. All the
That's right. That's right. So it was, that's there's nowhere quite like it. Have you been to Campbelltown?
Sadly not. I have been to the UK twice, but I've not made it to Scotland. It is on my bucket list for sure, and definitely wanted to visit Campbelltown. And so hopefully I'll be able to stop your way at some point in time. We'll see what the world looks like next year, maybe.
Yeah, just you let us know if next time you're in the UK, we'll see what we can do, sir.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
But no, it is. We've got a good relationship with the guys over the road, and it is literally over the road. I mean, when you come to Campbelltown, you can park the car at your hotel, and it's there for the rest of your day, for the rest of your stay, because everything is within walking distance.
Yeah.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's in everybody's best interest for us to work together to promote Campbelltown, the region. We've got, like I said, we've got those kind of commonalities, and like I said, when it comes to likes of the festival and things, we run the festival very, very much like we do, like Isla do. So we've all got our own days. So we'll do all our big events on the Wednesday. It'll then be Springbank on the Thursday and Glengyle on the Friday. So we're not competing for that share of audience. We know that the vast majority of people that are coming for the full piece, and a lot of times they're coming for the full Campbelltown Festival and then they're off to an Isla afterwards. So no, it's definitely, it's working together.
Yeah,
very much so.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's That'll be interesting to a lot of folks for sure to kind of know about how these a close-knit community like that kind of works together as much as possible, while also, you know, obviously doing business.
That's right. That's right.
Just two final questions for you. Be curious what each of your first drams were.
On you go, Gary.
Well, it was double cask for me. Well, it was double cask was certainly the first one that I really remember. My dad has always been a whiskey drinker. He's always been a malt drinker, and probably since the day I turned 18, he has been trying to get me to take the odd one. But it took double cask in Glen Scotia for me to be properly bitten and properly taken. And I think it's the combination of the sweetness from the bourbon barrels and the dryness of the sherry that just make double cask just for me personally just such an easy drinking dram, to the point where I started referring to it as whiskey flavoured iron brew. So iron brew is like a very the most Scottish soft drink that you can get, and it's really probably mostly we're one of the only countries where Coca-Cola is not the #1 soft drink. I suppose iron brew is #1 and Coca-Cola is #2. And literally, yeah, as much as I love the Glen Scotia range, and there are, I think they've all got their kind of time and their place, and like who you're with and what occasion you've got. But for me, I could pop double cask open, relatively speaking, any time of the day.
What was your dram?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, for me, as I say, I was. I've been drinking whiskey on and off since I've been young. So I think my first real association that I can remember was with an Islay whiskey, believe it or not. And that was...
That's somewhere to start.
That's a start in there. But that said, you know, I never really appreciated whiskey until, you know, obviously I came to Glen Scotia, and obviously once I you know, get into the whiskey making process and what could actually be done, then obviously that slightly changed my perception a wee bit, you know. So obviously, and as I say, you know, the length of time, 13 years I've been at Glen Scotia, and there's still so many questions that I need to answer, you know. So it's a never-ending quest for me, and it all starts and ends with Glen Scotia. So that keeps me pretty preoccupied at the moment, I've got to say. So my heart goes off to everyone else who tries other whiskies, you know, because well,
very cool. Last question I had for you guys was, what do you think is the next big thing coming in whiskey?
Oh, well, I think, you know, obviously this, you see it every day. There's also, you know, there's so many different aspects coming along. Even Gary there with, as I say, the online festival, you know, that seemed to, is one of the first that I can actually remember seeing, I think, about, you know, during the present crisis. So there's innovation every day, you know, in different aspects, and that's obviously that the Glen Scotia Virtual Whisky Festival is just an example of that. You know, it could be in the production side, operations side, or it could be obviously, as I said, in the marketing. So there's so many different aspects, and I think obviously that's what keeps whisky interesting you, because you're getting so many switched on people in the industry, or obviously working in all different facets and parts of the industry, whether it's with wood management or whether it's in marketing. So yeah, a lot to come yet.
I know, and I think that's I think there are a lot of, I don't want to call them fads, but there are a lot of focuses that will come and go, whether it's different styles of cask, different styles of distillation. But I think there's that real solid core of kind of, and it's the same in bourbon as in Scotch. There's that real solid core that everybody will always come back into that middle. And I think it's just how it's presented to that next generation of drinker. What's the hook that really gets them in? And it's trying to, I kind of see it as trying to do what we can do to help people on their whisky journey, and how we can lead them into what we're trying to do. how that fits in that kind of broader Scotch and then the broader whiskey world. And I think that's where it'll always go. There'll always be new things that will pop up, whether that is with the whiskey or with the marketing and things that go around it. But there's always that median that everybody kind of comes back into. And for us, it's always going to be staying true to that Campbelltown style. We're not going to go jumping on any big fads and throwing stuff in any tequila casks or anything like that. It's all about doing everything for a very solid reason, and kind of staying true to ourselves on it.
Right on. Very cool. Well, I want to thank both of you for your time and sharing your analysis of the single cask hand-filled bottle, and for telling us all about like Glen Scotia and your thoughts on whiskey and everything. Again, appreciate your time, and maybe we'll talk again sometime down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, I must apologise for obviously your obviously the bottle there, because as I say, it's genuinely it's the first time I've ever seen anything like that, you know. And as I say, you know, if you're ever over in Campbelltown, then certainly, you know, I'll try to make amends for that for sure.
Sure. Well, thanks so much, you guys. Have a good rest of your day.
Okay, thanks then. Thank you for having me.